In today's episode, I'll be giving my picks and predictions for International Fight Week UFC 317, Topuria versus Oliveira, Pantoja versus Kaikar, France, and then we'll give you a little bit of how we did on UFC 316, some news around the UFC before we get into UFC 317. So let's dive right into this action-packed episode for UFC 317. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the Dub Cast. Before we get into UFC 317, obviously, you see I'm alone today. Me and Shane, unfortunately, I'm traveling, so Shane could not be able to join us on this wonderful podcast, but he will be back in the future. So for UFC 316, the Dubcast, my picks, we went 2-3 on picks overall, with that bringing our record to an overall record of 30-41. I always say, considering units, it's not the worst thing in the world, when we're having to scrap together parlays to make some plus money, and, there's barely any odds or fights that are even in the UFC. So I've actually been doing very well betting UFC. We did well at UFC Atlanta. We did well at UFC Baku. If you guys want me to do a UFC pod every week, I'll do it. It just takes a lot of research, and I don't feel like doing it, so I only like doing the pay-per-views. That being said, 30-41 could be improved upon, and that's what we aim to do on this podcast. So expect only winners from here on out, even though the last 3 or so pay-per-views have not been good. Okay, so UFC 316, let's jump right into it. So the early prelims, kind of a sleeper as usual. There was one impressive knockout from Yu Ju Sang, but I was not watching at this point. I did see the clips on X.com. Good for him. Yeah, I mean, not much as always on the early prelims. My boy Waldo on the regular prelims. Waldo Cortez Acosta, a contested decision on X. I don't know what, can we stop with the Twitter judging and just let the judges do their thing, unless it's a robbery that I lose money on? No, I thought Waldo won this fight. I'm trying to recall specifically. I think he had the first and the third round, maybe. I actually took this leg for my friends in a parlay. They were hating on me like, this leg's going to lose. I'm like, bro, don't ever disrespect me, because I was the first leg up, and they're like trying to voodoo me into having a bad pick. He won, guys. Waldo got it done over Spivak. I always kind of thought Spivak's a little bit fraudulent in my opinion. So Waldes Cortez Acosta is now in the middle of the heavyweight rankings, which, may speak more for heavyweight rankings than it does for Waldo, but that's that. Moving up the card, another one I found to be significant was Joshua Van. He gets a knockout win over Bruno Silva. And guess what? We're going to be talking about Joshua Van later on in this card, but I kind of said to Shane, I'm not sure if Joshua Van has finishing power. I was wrong. I do like Joshua Van, so I'm excited to see him move up these rankings super fast at flyweight. Flyweight actually has a lot of interesting, storylines and dynamics. I think flyweight might be one of the most fun divisions right now, other than Pantoja just hogging the championship. But impressive win from Joshua Van. Got him with a minute or so to go. Really dominated the whole fight, striking too. I mean, I love Joshua Van, watching him fight, so I'm excited for his fight on this card versus Brandon Royval, which we'll get to in a second. Then we get to the main card. Kevin Holland. I've been a Kevin Holland hater. I got to admit that I've been wrong about Kevin Holland every time I pick for him. He loses every time I pick against him. He wins. It's just one of those types of fighters. But I have to say, he does look kind of good at welterweight. He's stringing together some wins. He got the win over Gunnar Nelson. Now he submits Vicente Luque, who, I don't want to discredit his win, but Luque is a little bit aging. But that's still a decent win, at the bottom of the rankings. So Holland's moving up the rankings. Was announced today on Wednesday, the 25th, when I'm recording this video, that he is now booked against Daniel Rodrigues for UFC 318 as well. So he's making a quick turnaround. He'll be back in July. So if he's actually able to do his usual output of fighting super consistently and then also staying in the same weight class, I think this could actually be good for Kevin Holland. I'm not sure when we get up to the top of the welterweight how he does, but that middle range, I'm interested to see those odds against Daniel Rodrigues. We'll see what happens for Kevin Holland, but I was impressed by his win. And another one I was wrong on, I took Luque. When you see plus 240, maybe our alarm bells should ring off in your head, but I'm trying to find underdogs in this channel, guys, okay? Moving forward, the most disappointing fight of the night. There's always one fight that I'm I put in all my parlays, and I'm if that one hit, Jose Aldo versus Sahibi, Gaethje versus Max Holloway. It's like there's always one that I'm just like, why do I always put this in the same one? And this time it was Patchy Mix. And I gotta say, I'm doing the Skip Bayless. I mean, I don't know if these fighters from outside of promotions can come in here and get wins anymore. We've seen Patricio Pitbull, Kaya Sakura, Patchy Mix looked lost, bro. He didn't even look like, at least Pitbull looked like, well, Pitbull didn't really throw much either. I don't even know who's a good example. Like, maybe if we're bringing guys into the UFC, we start them at the bottom of the rankings, or you get like a number 13 to 15 guy. You jump up and you're fighting Mario Bautista, who just took out Jose, like a legend, in Jose Aldo. I mean, I was sleeping on Bautista. It was a hate bet. I admitted that it was a hate bet. I think a lot of us did hate bet against Bautista and just moved Patchy right past him because we hate the way he won over Jose Aldo. But this was an impressive performance out of Mario Bautista. But it's in my head, I'm like, what's more impressive, his win or is this just Patchy sucking? Like, I'm interested to see where Patchy goes from here. He came in kind of late. He's mid-30s. I still believe, like, if he gets the right matchup, but it's like he's got to start throwing stuff. He just looked dead. Like, he wasn't throwing anything. So that was really concerning. Obviously, I had Patchy in like 3 or 4 parlays, so that didn't help. Yeah, hope the best for him. Mario Bautista, I still don't think, or I still hope he doesn't get to the top. But after that win, you have to give a little respect to him. So a little respect to Mario. Joe Pyfer versus Kelvin Gastelum was a really weird fight. I know Kelvin's kind of bigger and like in a weird build for that division because he's kind of bigger, so he can't move down. So he has a super height disadvantage. But Joe Pyfer, I called this too, that he wouldn't put him out. Not to be like LeBron, you can literally go back and watch the old podcast, guys. But Joe Pyfer, I guess he's moving up in the division, which is fun for him. Like, I don't know. I don't view Kelvin Gastelum as like a nice resume win. He's kind of just like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Gatekeeper. Sorry, Calvin, but it's like at this weight class, you have that one fight against Izzy Adesanya that's going in the Hall of Fame, but it's like that I unfortunately never watched that one. I know I'm a casual. I don't know. I just don't think Joe Pyfer really has it yet. Like, and also he kind of gasses out or like gives up a little bit if he doesn't get the knockout. Like, he knocked Kelvin down 1 or 2 times in the first 2 rounds, and then the third round, Kelvin started, getting some punches in there. So that was just a really weird fight to watch. I would say stock kind of down a little bit on Pyfer, and Kelvin about what we expected out of him. Super high disadvantage, and tried his best, but you're not beating Joe Pyfer. Now into the championship fights. Kayla Harrison submits Juliana Pena. Unfortunately, Shane is not here, but he did say Kayla Harrison round 2. He got Kayla Harrison round 2, so that was a crazy call. Shout out to Shane. I took it as well, so that hit as well. Now we have an intense face-off. There's actually intrigue in this sport, and it just happens to be in the women's bantamweight division, I believe. Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes face off in the ring. Thought that was hype. Thought there was a lot of aura behind that. I'm actually looking forward to this women's fight. They're going to make it a pay-per-view though, and it's going to be bad. But if this is a co-main event on I guess MSG, like I'm trying to think of the ones that they actually care about, the pay-per-views, but there's so little of them. Maybe doing the Abu Dhabi card in October, their co-main event. I don't know. But I could see them doing like making this like UFC 322 in like December when everyone's on Christmas and everyone calls out, and this is like the main event. But I'm actually excited to see Kayla versus Amanda Nunes. It's a weird build-up because I don't think Amanda Nunes is in the testing pool. So they wanted this fight though. There's a long story. Like this is what you wanted. For Juliana Pena, she looked horrible in this fight. I kind of mentioned it to Shane. Like she just has this weird build. Like she can somehow beat Amanda once, and then like I thought Pennington won that fight against her, but she did enough to do that, and then she comes out here and looks like, I don't know, maybe it's time to give it up. Juliana Pena. Finally, the last fight of the night, Merab versus Sean. Sean looks slightly better in my opinion, but this time Merab gets the submission. Like it was the same exact carbon copy of the first fight pretty much, except Sean looked like slightly better. And Merab gets it done by finish. Merab's like a decision machine, but in this one, he's able to submit him in the 3rd round. So good for him. I mean, Merab's making his case for best bantamweight of all time. Got to be excited for that for him. It's hard to not. I mean, a lot of people don't like Merab because he doesn't, have the most exciting fights. But I thought like first, looking at just this year, he fights. First of all, he fights often, which is hard to ask for a champion. Like every champion fights between like 8 months. Merab just this year has already beat Umar in a crazy fight in January, and now again has submitted Sean O'Malley in the third round. Like I think Umar versus Merab's like top two title fights I've seen. The other one being JDM versus Bilal, which is like, that's what we're going. That's our best fights in 2020. It's our best title fights in 2025. But yeah, I think Merab's like entertaining. I'm excited to see Merab versus whoever's up next. Looks like it's going to be Corey Sandhagen. Like I don't think Merab fights down to competition, but it's like he makes these things sort of interesting. At least this year, he has made it interesting. The fight against Sean was kind of boring, the first one. So I'm excited to see what Merab can do against Corey Sandhagen. I predict he'll be a wide favorite on that and probably beat Corey Sandhagen, but we'll have to see. Continue his case and just clear out the division. So good for Merab. What's up next for Sean? I don't know. Does he go to featherweight? Does he go up? I don't think you want to go up this early because if you go up and then you flame out, it's like, what do you have left? The thing is, it's all wrestlers at the top of featherweight right now. You're going against Peter Yan. You don't want that rematch when Peter Yan beat you the first time. I guess you look like maybe Marcus McGee on a loss. I don't know what's next for Sean. Corey Sandhagen, maybe if he loses, but like, it's not looking good for the UFC's golden child. So that's UFC 316. In the meantime, we've had 2 fight cards. So quickly, UFC Atlanta. I was at the Great Mohegan Sun watching this one because I was at BKFC. By the way, if you ever go to BKFC, the event lasts like 2 hours. So just heads up on that. But my boy Kamaru Usman gets a decision win over Joaquin Buckley. So great to see that. I love Usman. I know there's not a lot of Usman likers out there. Whenever I'm telling people I like Kamaru Usman, they're like, really? You like Kamaru Usman? Yeah, I like Kamaru Usman. And he's coming back for that belt, bitch. No, I don't think he should get a title shot. But make him versus Bilal, please, and let him beat the shit out of Bilal somehow. Then we'll all be happy. Bilal moves down the rankings. They have the podcast beef or whatever happened. Yeah, I mean, Usman looked just peak wrestling against Buckley. Buckley, a little bit of a failure until the 5th round there, but I'm sure he'll be back. The week after that, last week, we had UFC Baku. Didn't watch these cards, but we can talk about the result. Or didn't watch these fights, but I'll quickly go over the results. Fiziev win over Bahamondes. Yeah, I think it's just too early for Bahamondes. Fiziev, I'm glad he's still kicking around in lightweight at the bottom end of the rankings. He'll be a fun fighter moving forward if he's able to stay active. And then Khalil dismantles Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill, I just don't think is good at fighting. I think he's lost 3 straight now to Yuri. Well, he's good at fighting because he's facing the top of the division, but it's like you lost to Yuri, you lost to Alex, obviously, and then you lost to Khalil Roundtree. So he's moving down the rankings fast. I just don't know. I wasn't a UFC fan of his when he was coming up, so I'm curious to see what kind of wins he got. It's light heavyweight, so I'm sure some knockouts, but I don't know who's next for him. And I'm kind of worried about him. I don't even everyone hates Jamal Hill, and I don't hate him as much, but it's like I don't think he's ever going to be a champion again, in my opinion. I don't know. And Khalil, if Uncle Ive stays champ and Pereira really walks out the door, then maybe Khalil gets a title shot in 2026 or something. I don't know. There's only one piece of information left to discern. I wish Shane was here. I wish his friend was here. Jon Jones has retired from the UFC. Makes a phone call Saturday night. UFC announces it after the Baku card. That's it. Tom Aspinall is the undisputed champion of the world. Jon Jones. He held up years of Tom's career, bro. And he ducked. Granted, he's the quote unquote GOAT, undefeated. What's Jon Jones's best win though? He ran from Ngannou, he ran from Aspinall at heavyweight, light heavyweight. I think he beat Rampage Jackson. I don't want to call it legacy because I wasn't a fan of him for a while. I just got back into the UFC, but it's like this was so frustrating to watch. And then he beats Stipe in November and then waits 7 months to retire, and he has a pending charge in Albuquerque from April or something. It's like, dude, this guy, I mean, every athlete has their problems. Tom Brady's had some off the field issues. Michael Jordan, obviously, every GOAT needs to have a problem. Well, not needs to, but most likely has a problem just because they're so good at everything. Man, there's a lot to unpack with this John Jones situation. I'm happy this heavyweight division gets to move on. He held the whole division. Like, guys weren't taking fights in the top 5 because they don't know what's happening. They don't know if Tom's gonna be champ. They don't know if John's gonna be champ. Jones versus Aspinall, I think, was on a lot of people's at least top 2 of fights you wanted to see this year. I mean, everyone wanted to see Islam versus Ilia. I still think John versus Tom would be number 1 for a lot of people. Like, that fight had crazy momentum and just flames out like that because we delayed it, and then John retires. At least there'll be no more, glazing from Dana. But John Jones, congrats on a hell of a career. Kind of a scumbag person, though. And Tom Aspinall is now the champion of the heavyweight division. I expect him to be active soon and early, fighting early and often. So congrats to Tom. Congrats to John. And we move on to what we're all here for. UFC 317 taking place in Las Vegas, Nevada. Starting with the early prelims, we have 3 fights in the early prelims. First one is a middleweight bout between Christopher Ewert facing off with Jackson McVey. Christopher Ewert minus 148 in the money line. Jackson McVey plus 124. So I believe this is the fight that Cedric Dumas is somehow in the UFC and was on this card and was supposed to be on this fight facing off against McVey. He pulls out, so they have 2 guys who have never fought in the UFC before. Christopher Ewert is 7-0. Most wins via KO, 5 of 7 via KO, 2 decision wins. McVey, 6-0, came from LFA and Shamrock FC, also undefeated. I think I already said 6-0, but as you can tell, I have nothing to go off of this fight. The new Dubcast rule has been to not touch the first fight of the night. Short notice fight. 2 guys who have never fought in the UFC before. This has all the keys to me not taking anything on this fight. If you're a psychopath, then you can bet and you want to bet on everything, then go ahead. But I'm going to be sitting back. I don't even think the first beer is going to be cracked. I'm not even going to realize this fight's on when it's happening. It's like, these guys mean nothing to me. Imagine they're watching this. Like, who's he going to pick? No, I mean, I don't know. I find it hard to. My number one thing is UFC experience. I want to see the names you beat and the names you lost to. I want to see how it was done, how you do in the UFC. How do you do in Dana White Contender Series? How do you do in road to the UFC? How do you do in Ultimate Fighter? Like, I need to see at least something with UFC related promotions. As I mentioned at the top with Patchy Mix, I don't know how good you are if you're not in the UFC. Like, Patchy Mix is supposed to be this legend, looks like a stiff against Mario Bautista. So, first fight of the night, 2 guys who've never been in the UFC before. Maybe I'll be watching this, maybe I won't be, but I'm not touching anything on this first fight of the night in the middleweight division. Moving down the card. Heavyweight. Jhonata Diniz is a minus 325 favorite facing off against Alvin Hines. So, Jhonata Diniz, if you go back to my UFC 309 pod, I was big on him, big on him to beat Marcin Tybura. Was completely wrong about that. He lost in a TKO via doctor stoppage to Tybura. Kind of a weak stoppage, but Diniz was getting the shit beat out of him. He didn't look like anything exciting was going to happen for him. And I like this. I like Diniz, obviously, so I took him. But yeah, that was a tough one to swallow right there. I remember watching that Dave & Buster's parking lot being like, well, this is not going to go well. So all of Diniz's wins, except for one, have come via knockout. The other win is a decision win in the UFC, and his only loss in his career is that KO loss to, doctor stoppage KO loss to Tybura. Now, you may be asking, who's Alvin Hines? I don't fucking know either. Alvin Hines this is his first fight in the UFC. He's got 3 wins via KO, 3 wins via submission, and 1 decision win in his career, 7-0. And he has never lost a fight. Like, I don't know why I keep saying they're undefeated, 7-0, and then never lost a fight. That being said, the picks here, I'm going with Diniz. We got to get back in the train, baby. Let's do it. I'm done with the people from other promotions. You have to show me something in order for me to pick you in the UFC. And Diniz at least has a couple wins in the UFC. Tybura is, like, for the heavyweight division, he's one of the vets up there, this trend of non-UFC fighters coming in and getting smoked. Like, I'm thinking, I don't even know what card I'm thinking of, but, like, not even big names, just like these lower level names on early prelims and prelims. Like, these guys come in, they're not winning fights. So I got Diniz. And especially in the heavyweight division, where if you're actually good, you'd already be in the UFC. In my opinion, heavyweights back half of the rankings is pretty tough. So I like Diniz to finish Alvin Hines early in this fight. I'm looking at his minus 325 money line to add to a parlay, and then I'll also take the under 2.5 just to be safe because Diniz does have does have that one decision win. I don't know if Hines is going to be like a Carlos Leal and make this crazy. And I have to say, fighters coming off the regional scene maybe roided up. It's a reality of life. So maybe if he's roided up, he'll take Hines. It'll be longer to knock out, but I got the under 2.5, maybe 1.5 if I'm feeling frisky and I don't have enough bets. And then Diniz money line to add to a different parlay. Moving down the card, the last fight of the early prelims is a welterweight fight between Niko Price and Jacobe Smith. So we have covered Niko Price on this channel, the UFC 302 podcast. He got a decision win over Alex Morono. And yeah, if you know anything about fighting, Alex Morono sucks. And he got cut from the UFC since this fight. And yeah, I don't know how much to take from that since he beat a guy who's already been cut. And then since that, he also lost a decision to Themba Garimbo in October of 2024. All I know from Garimbo, we covered him in a podcast. He lost to Vicente Luque. So it's like these guys aren't great stock. Niko Price, UFC veteran, hasn't really beat anyone that I consider to be great or even good in the sport, to be honest. I'm sorry. I mean, he's been around for a really long time, so I got to give him that. But he does have some KO and sub power, rarely winning by decision, and he's been knocked out 5 times and submitted once. So, there is that possibility he goes out early, which his opponent, Jacobe Smith, if you don't see the minus 2,100 next to his name, has been in the UFC since 2024, has a 2-0 record, most recently beating Preston Parsons. I believe that's like somewhat of a name in the welterweight division via knockout in the first round. That was in January. He comes back 5 months later. He's ready to face off against Niko Price. So Jacobe Smith, 80% wins via KO. Other 2 are decision wins. Most of these knockouts do happen in the first round as well. And as I mentioned before, 10-0 record. So the picks here, come on, man. I can't fall for the Payton Talbott bullshit anymore with the super high odds. So I was actually looking at Jacobe Smith by KO. That's minus 375. I don't like taking methods that are over like even odds. It's just unless it's like, I don't know. I'm not touching this fight, obviously. I just don't think there's a chance for Niko. Although he is a UFC vet with a ton of experience, I think they're kind of just feeding him to Jacobe Smith, in my opinion, right here. I do see Smith winning via first round KO, but the odds being higher than almost any fight I've ever seen. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a minus 2,100 favorite. I'm not going to touch this one with those KO odds. I'll just throw it on, watch the 2 minutes that Niko Price is in the ring, see Jacobe Smith going to knock out, and then we'll move on with our day. Down to the prelims of this card. First fight being Terrance McKinney in the lightweight division is a minus 170 favorite facing off against Viacheslav Borshchev. So Terrance McKinney, we haven't covered him here in the Dubcast so far. He's been in the UFC since 2021. He's beat the names Matt Frevola, Fares Ziam. He has lost to Drew Dober, Ismail Baifim, Sadikov, and Ribovic. So kind of that middle tier he's kind of going back and forth with. 8 wins via KO, 8 wins via submission, and he's never won a fight via decision. And then his losses, 5 of 7 of those come via knockout, 2 losses via submission, and he's never gone to a decision in any career fight. So he's never lost a decision, he's never won a decision, he's never made it to decision. So that's just a crazy stat from Terrance McKinney. Will he make it to the distance for the first time in his fighting career this Saturday? I don't know. I didn't touch that part of this fight. But his opponent, Viacheslav Borshchev, we covered him in the UFC 312 pod, where he lost a decision to Tom Nolan. I believe this was in Australia. Don't remember much about this fight between Borshchev and Tom Nolan. Actually, maybe was that the one where Tom Nolan was like on the ground? I think Tom Nolan's like a lengthy motherfucker. What division is this? Lightweight? Maybe not. Yeah, don't remember much about that one, the UFC 312 fights, but Borshchev is also another KO guy, only has 2 wins via decision. Most of his losses do come via decision, though, and he does have 1 submission loss. His last 2 fights have gone to decision. So my picks here, I think this is a tougher fight to pick, but I'm just not trusting Borshchev to get this done with his UFC experience so far. I slightly value McKinney and slightly lean towards his side, but not too confident in that pick. I also think it's one that will likely end early, obviously with McKinney never having a fight going the distance, but the odds will probably not be great knowing that. So I'm not touching that aspect of the fight. So we're looking at McKinney at money line minus 170 here to add to a parlay. Moving down the card, women's strawweight. We have two ranked fighters here. We have the number 8th ranked contender, Viviane Araujo, who is plus 205, facing off against Tracy Cortez, who is minus 250 on the money line. She's number 10 in the women's strawweight division. So Viviane Araujo, we covered her in the UFC 309 video. A lot of UFC 309 fighters on this card, where she got a decision win over Korean Silva. Don't really remember much about this one either, to be honest. Probably had the wrong side because, like these prelim women's fights, I always pick the wrong sides now. But Viviane's last 11 fights have gone the distance. She kind of falters against that next level of competition, in my opinion. But I'm not super impressed with her resume. She only has one KO win within the UFC. Tracy Cortez, we haven't covered her here on the Debcast yet. She joined the UFC in 2019. She's beat Jasmine Jadovich or Jazudavicius in 2023. That's a crazy name for a resume. She lost most recently to Rose in July of 24. Remember, I was watching that fight for a bit. Rose looked pretty good. You know, that's the viral moment of getting your eyelash beating off, or not beating off, getting your eyelash punched off. You know, that's women's fighting these days. That's what goes viral. So Tracy, 9 of her 11 wins come via decision, 1 knockout win and 1 submission win. She was submitted in the very first fight of her career, and then most recently lost the decision to Rose, those being her only 2 losses. So my picks here, I'd like Cortez to get this done via decision. Her number's a bit high for what I'd expect, minus 250, but Vegas must be 11 or 2. I think that's fine. You know, a lot of underdogs in the Baku card, so we could be looking at a favorites steamroll here. You know, I do believe favorites win about like 60 to 70% of fights just in general, probably more even. I do have a note on my phone, but I'm not going to pull it up. I think Cortez will look solid in this one, after that disappointing fight with Rose almost 11 months later. She's had a lot of time to recover on that. Perform Araujo, whose resume I don't think, or outperform Araujo, whose resume I don't think is that impressive. So we're looking at here, have to take the classic to go the distance, even though it's minus 650. We're putting it in because it's a lock. We put in locks here, even if they're minus 650, even though I just said I don't do that earlier. Cortez, also, money line minus 250. We're going to grab that as well. Moving down the card to my favorite part of the card. Spoiler alert, these next 2 fights. Actually, well, not really my favorite part, but betting-wise. Featherweight. We have Hyder Amil, who is plus 136, facing off against Jose Miguel Delgado, who is minus 162. So Hyder Amil joined the UFC in 2024. He's been 4-0 in UFC-related promotions in that time. He has a win over Jiang Yang Li and William Gomez. I believe we watched Jiang Yang Li fight in the last couple weeks. 6 of Hyder's 11 wins come via knockout, 4 wins via decision, and 1 submission win. And he has never lost a fight. Obviously undefeated, even though this time I didn't say it beforehand, but he's never lost a fight. Jose Miguel Delgado, he joined the UFC in 2024 as well. In that time, he's been 2-0 in UFC-related promotions. 5 of his 9 wins come via knockout, 4 wins via submission, so no decision wins for Jose Miguel. Lost the only decision he has in his he's lost the only fight that's gone to decision in his career. So my picks here, I'm going with the underdog. I'm rolling with Hyder Amil. He's got more UFC-related experience, fought a higher level of competition, and also has the O to protect. Can't lose that undefeated record. I do think Delgado could be trouble as he's got 2 inches of height on him. Hyder seems a bit small for the featherweight division. Well, 5'11", like how tall is Sean O'Malley? I don't know. Like I feel like that. Well, he's not at featherweight. He's in bantamweight. So I think Hyder will be okay. I'm putting my money where I can trust. I always like to roll with the better UFC resume. I do think this one likely ends early, but the over could be live as well. So I'm not loving the distance either way on this one. So we're just going to grab Amil money line plus 136 here and move down the card. The next fight is a middleweight fight between Jack Hermansson plus 170 facing off against Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues, who is a big favorite at minus 2. Well, not big, but somewhat big favorite at minus 205. So Jack Hermansson, we haven't covered him. A little bit about him. Joined in 2016, so he's almost at 10 years in the UFC. He's beat Gerald Mearshart, Jacare Souza, Kelvin Gastelum, Shabazian, Chris Curtis, and most recently Joe Pyfer, which is a crazy win. He did lose to Thiago Santos, Jared Cannonier, Martin Vittori, Sean Strickland, Roman Dolidze, and has not fought since February of 2024. So we're looking at about mathing 16 months of recovery. He probably got hurt. I don't really follow the injury, so that's my guess. 11 of his 24 wins come via knockout, 6 submission wins, 7 decision wins. His last 3 fights have all been decision wins. The losses, 3 come via KO, 3 come via decision, 2 losses via submission, and 5 of his last 6 fights have gone the distance in general, not just the wins. Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues. We covered him in the UFC 304 video where he got a unanimous decision win over Christian Leroy Duncan. That was over a year ago at this point, or that was about a year ago at this point. All I remember from that fight was just not knowing who is who and being like, I don't know which is who, and I didn't touch this fight, so I don't really care what happens. So I didn't really remember much about that. But most recently, Gregory or RoboCop was knocked out by Jared Cannonier in February. I remember that fight. I think that went into the third or fourth round. RoboCop looked gassed, man. I don't think he was ready for that. Like, he came out strong, had a nice first round, but then I think he just took punches to the body, had to give in. So with RoboCop, he's mostly a KO winner, has a couple decision wins, no submission wins within the UFC. When he loses, it's been via knockout or submission, so he is prone to lose early if losing. So my picks for this fight, actually, I like the underdog again. That's why these are my 2 favorite fights of the card. I like the underdog in both of them. I think this one may go the distance, and that favors Hermansson. I'm going off of what I most recently watched, which was RoboCop gassing out against Cannonier. I do think he has a good resume, but I'm taking a deeper look. He doesn't have those names I'm looking for when I see him matched up against someone like Hermansson, who has kind of fought the who's who in this division. He's kind of beat that lower level of competition. Gregory Rodrigues doesn't have a name or a number next to his name. Hermansson's beating prospects like Shabazian, Joe Pyfer, Mearshardt's a good name. Granted, he does lose to people like Cannonier, Vittori, whatever. I already said it, but those are people up in the rankings. So I think Hermansson's pulled this one out in a decision win over Gregory Rodrigues, another underdog to add right there. The main card, which unfortunately there's only one fight that got moved down, which was Paulo Costa versus Roman Kopylov, bringing this fight to the main card. Payton Talbott versus Felipe Lima. I believe this is somewhat short notice because I remember this fight being announced only a couple weeks ago. Payton Talbott, plus 154, underdog. First time being an underdog in his UFC career, I'm guessing. Felipe Lima, a somewhat sizable favorite at minus 185. So Payton Talbott, we've covered him in 2 podcasts, the UFC 303 podcast, the UFC 311 podcast, and most recently, UFC 311, where some idiot in a Dunkin' parking lot in Connecticut put him in his parlay and would have won millions if he just put in anything else that he liked that day, but he had to put in minus 1,000 for Payton Talbott. And then he loses to Raoni Barcelos, gets ragdolled on the ground. Payton Talbott, I love Frank Ocean too, but man, stop having him film porn videos of you and get in the gym, brother. So Payton Talbott, sorry, that was mean. Let me collect myself. So Payton Talbott, almost all of his wins are via early finish. Only loss was the decision loss to Barcelos. Hasn't really fought a name prior to Barcelos. He's kind of one of those people that just line up the pins for him to knock down. Seemed like they were going to do that again with Barcelos, considering he's minus 100,000, 100,000 million favorite. We know that's not true. So Felipe Lima, never heard of this guy, but he seems pretty dangerous. He joined the UFC in 2024. He's 2-0 in that time. He beat Naimov and Miles Johns. These are 2 somewhat decent names at bantamweight, I believe. 7 of his 14 wins come via decision, 4 knockout wins, 3 submission wins, and then his only loss is a submission loss in 2015, the first fight of his career. So that kind of gives me JDM energy. I got to keep it real. So the picks here, this has to be a spite spot. I'm sorry, I'm taking Felipe Lima. I just feel like at this point we have to say Payton Talbott's a fraud. I'm sorry. He's lanky for the division, I know, but he got ragdolled by Raoni Barcelos, who's been here forever. I know he's a good vet, but I just have no confidence in, I believe Raoni Barcelos also got a win last weekend 2 weekends ago over Cody Garbrandt. Nonetheless, I can't in good faith take Payton Talbott, bro. I'm sorry. Quick turnaround as well. January, it was a decision win, so it wasn't, he took damage, but he didn't, get destroyed or anything. I just have no confidence in him winning this fight. In a competition, I don't see it. I like the over here as well. I think Lima wins this one by decision. I don't see Talbott going out via knockout or submission. So we got Felipe Lima via decision, looking at Lima money line minus 185, and Talbot versus Molina over 2.5 rounds for the over there. Moving down the card to the exciting flyweight division, the one we've all been waiting for. Not really, but, Joshua Van's electric. So this is the flyweight division. Number 1 ranked contender is Brandon Royval. Slight underdog, still has a minus. I was checking a little bit today just to make sure my odds were good, and I saw him at plus 100, but he's floating around minus 105, plus 100 area, facing off against the number 11th ranked Joshua Van, who is minus 118 on the money line, kind of a bigger favorite. I'm seeing more consistently, which is confusing to me, as we'll get into as we'll get into it now. Brandon Royval. We haven't covered him on this channel, which is crazy. The people we don't cover aren't on pay-per-view. So I'm like, this flyweight division's fun. Let's get these people on pay-per-views. We're covering fucking Payton Talbot on 3 main cards. Like, come on now. So Brandon Royval, he's been in the UFC since 2020. He's beat Tim Elliott, Kai Kara-France, Machinel, Matthew Nicolau, Brandon Moreno, and Tatsuro Taira. He lost to Moreno and then lost to Pantoja 2 times. So he's stuck at the number 1 position. They're not going to give him a third fight against Pantoja. So, if you're Royval tonight, you're rooting for... Well, all these guys at the top of flyweight are fucked. Like, Moreno's fucked, Royval's fucked, because it's like, even if Pantoja loses, he's won 5 or 6 in a row. He's going to get an automatic rematch, or at least he should. So, might as well bide your time, take fun fights. I believe this was supposed to be Royval versus Cop, maybe, and then someone obviously opted out. Joshua Van had a hype tweet, like, after he won, he's like, I got fight news tonight, and then you're on the next pay-per-view in 2 weeks against Brandon Royval. So, keeping on with the Royval train, 9 of his 17 wins have come via decision, or via submission, 4 wins via knockout and 4 wins via decision. He has 5 decision losses, 1 knockout loss, and 1 submission loss. Joshua Van, I believe he's the most covered UFC fighter we have on this podcast. We covered him in the UFC 306, UFC 310, UFC 313, and UFC 316 podcast, where he most recently got the KO win I talked about earlier over Bruno Silva, taking this one a super short notice, 3 weeks to the day. He fights again. And Joshua Van proved me wrong about his knockout power. He won 3 of his last 4 fights via decision, had that knockout win over Bruno Silva. Half of his wins in general come via knockout and can pull a submission. His losses have both been via early finish. So the picks here, I kind of alluded to it earlier. I respect the hell out of Joshua Van and his mindset. I really like Joshua Van. I'm just not seeing it in this one. Royval has fought the who's who of the flyweight division, while Van has slowly moved up, although he's done a little bit better recently. He's beat the Cody Durdens of the world at the back of the rankings. Bruno Silva, like guys who I don't know if they should be in the rankings. And I mean, that's not fair to say. They should be in the rankings. Joshua's earned his spot, but I just think this is too far of a jump up for him. And also a super fast turnaround, even though he got knocked out in like July and then fought in September, like on the Sphere card. But I don't know. I think Royval's got him. Like, I think Royval will win this in a decision. I think he'll just slightly outclass him on the feet. If we need to go to wrestling, I'd probably trust Royval more. So I got Royval. I'm a slight underdog. It's not going to be great money, but we're taking him. And then we're also taking the over. And then to go the distance is minus 185. We'll throw that into a parlay as well. Moving down the card to the feature fight. That's not a title fight. We have a fight that was booked for UFC 311, I believe. And then it became a title fight where Moicano jumps in and goes off against Islam, and this fight gets canceled. But nope, it's rescheduled for International Fight Week. This one should be a blast. It's a lightweight bout between number 9, Beneil Dariush, slight underdog at minus 105, facing off against number 10. I cannot afford to lose. Renato Moicano, money Moicano, minus 115. Yeah, we covered that. We literally covered this before this fight happening. So if you want to hear me and Shane's thoughts prior to the January card between Moicano and Dariush, go check that out. We'll rehash it all again here by myself. So Dariush joined the UFC in 2014, beating Diego Ferreira 2 times. He's beat Jim Miller. He's beat Michael Johnson, Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, Drakkar Klose, Tony Ferguson, and Mateusz Gamrot. He has lost to Michael Chiesa, Barbosa, Alexander Hernandez, Charles Oliveira, and Arman Sarukian. He has 9 wins via decision, 8 wins via submission, 5 wins via KO. 5 losses via KO, 1 loss via submission, and he has never lost a decision fight. Money Moicano, covered in the UFC 311 video, where we thought he was fighting Dariush, but ended up fighting Islam and got submitted in the first round. I'm blaming that one on the shoulder, man. Islam's getting these. Well, no, it's not Islam, because I was thinking about the jaw for Whitaker too. I don't think Islam's a pound for pound GOAT, bro. With John Jones out of the sport, what is he, top 2 with Ilia? It's like, you can't say Islam's, whatever. Islam's that dude, bro. So I'm not putting too much stock into that fight. Obviously, like almost 24 hours like a slightly more than 24 hours notice. Jumping up, it's hard to take a fight on short notice in general. Mind you, 24 hours. Mind you, against the number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world who hasn't lost in over 10 years. Just saying, like, I don't know. I don't think we should value that fight that much. Moicano, most wins, or half of his wins, come via submission. Obviously had that insane win over Jalen Turner. I don't know if that was a knockout or a submission. And then the win over Benoit, the doctor stoppage. 8 decision wins, 2 knockout wins. 3 of his losses are via knockout, 2 submission, and 1 decision. So my mindset going into betting this one is I literally cannot afford to lose money. So I'm taking Money Moicano. It may seem a little bit biased. So if you don't like bias, don't take it. I have my biases that I bet with, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm rolling with Money Moicano. Moicano was on a nice streak before facing Islam, bro. The number 1 pound for pound fighter in the world. I'm not making excuses for him, but I do worry about that shoulder issue he's got facing against submission artists like Dariush. But like Whitaker, when Whitaker got submitted with his jaw, he got jaw surgery. Moicano probably got shoulder surgery. That's it. Dariush hasn't been that active in a while also, and it kind of falters against that next level of competition. I do think this fight does tend to end early, but I'm not sure if it's via submission by Moicano, knockout via Moicano. I don't know. It could also just go the decision. It could be a 3 good round, a good 3-round war between 2 warriors. I do like Dariush. I don't have anything against him. I'm going to leave the distance off of it. I'm taking Moicano money line. Money Moicano. Let's roll into the title fights of the night. International Fight Week. This is what we're here for. First one. This man's always ready to scrap. It's the champ of the flyweight division, Alexandre Pantoja, probably one of the most active champions with Merab. He's at minus 238, facing off against someone he hasn't faced off against before. Number 4 ranked Kaikar France, plus 195. I've been seeing it plus 200 floated. Who knows where the fight will end up. But Alexandre Pantoja, we covered him in the UFC 301 and UFC 310 videos. Most recently getting a second round submission win over Kai Asakura. He looked solid in that performance. I remember that was the last my big parlay I needed to hit. I was like, Pantoja got me. I know if nobody out there got me, I know Pantoja got me. Against Urcheg, we don't need to talk about that one, but Steve could have been champ. He goes back and forth for me. I do like Pantoja. He mixes in all methods of victory, almost even for each method. 3 of his last 4 fights have gone the distance, though. 7-fight win streak, and when he's lost, it's been via decision. His opponent, Kaikar France, we covered him in the UFC 305 video, where you discarded my boy Steve. This is a tough fight for Steve Urcheg fans to watch, because Urcheg should be champion and should have not get not. I mean, the Kaikar France fan, there's nothing to even say. He got a first-round knockout win over Steve Urcheg in UFC 305 in Perth, Australia in August. Hasn't fought in 8 months, but he's here getting a title shot. Makes sense because it's the flyweight division. There's not a lot of people to throw in there against Pantoja, who hasn't fought against. I kind of mentioned that before. So very surprising victory in my eyes. Kaikar France, I remember he was an underdog for that one as well. So, could he pull it off again? He's beat, besides beating Cody Garbrandt, who Cody Garbrandt had one good fight against Dominic Cruz, and ever since then has been like aura farming and is not good. And then Urcheg, who, Urcheg's on a 2-fight losing streak. I know he got booked again, and he's going to win his next fight for sure. We're riding Urcheg to the moon next fight. This is an Urcheg podcast, though. Those are his only 2 good wins, in my opinion. Not that impressive of a resume. I know he does this like that, and is a psycho. I don't want to touch that. I don't like shamans. Like, I'm heading to the land of shamans. I can't have this on my mind. I can't have Kaikar France in my card. Half of his wins come via knockout. Rest of his fights are decisions, mostly, besides 3 knockouts. Losses have been super even split between all methods. So the picks here, I got to roll with Pantoja. I think this fight is going the distance. And when we go to the distance, we go to judge scorecards. The champions are defended. That's a fact. Look at any controversial decision besides freaking Alex Pereira versus Ankalaev. I guess maybe I'm capping. Like, whatever. I think this favors all aspects of this fight favor Alexander Pantoja. I lean more towards distance, so I don't think he's going to knock him out. Kai Kara's resume to me is just fraudulent for a title shot. Well, for someone I'd pick in a title shot, like I think I've kind of been accurate with main events. Like I knew Merab was going to win. I said by decision. But I knew Kayla. I can't say minus 850, whatever. JDM had that. I'm trying to think back. I'm not going to go all the way back, but it's like I feel like main events I've been kind of locked in this year. Main and co-main events, title fights. Sorry. Anyways, I think there is a logjam at flyweight. I think Pantoja continues this. He called out Demetrius Johnson last time. Demetrius Johnson has a freaking YouTube channel with like over 1 million subscribers, and he streams on Twitch. He's not coming out of retirement to fight you. I guess hope Joshua Van wins. I actually just saw a post today about who Pantoja thought was interesting. He's not going up to bantamweight, so Pantoja's going to be here for a while. I think he's going to want to. I think he wants to surpass DJ in the flyweight division. So I think he's going to win this fight, continue on with his legacy. Yeah, Kai Kara hasn't really beat those names at flyweight to make me impressed. Maybe he comes in motivated and goes crazy, but I just don't foresee that happening. So we're looking at the over 4.5 rounds, which is minus 130, and to go the distance, which is minus 110, and Pantoja's money line minus 238. We'll throw that onto a parlay. Now, the main event of the evening, the vacant lightweight championship, mind you, is a fight between someone moving up from being champion of the featherweight division, Ilia Topuria, at a almost minus 440 odds, facing off against the number 2 lightweight ranked contender, Charles Oliveira, plus 340. And, these lines have been all over the place. I've seen Ilia minus 400. I've seen Ilia minus 500. Charles up to plus 500. Like, shit's getting wild out here. But Ilia Topuria, we covered him. The UFC 308 video where I claimed that at least one of him or Khamzat Chimaev would lose, and both of them won. So I was wrong, and now I turned the heel because I also bet against him with Volk. So when I bet against you 2 times and you beat me both times, I join your side. So yeah, KO win over Max was super impressive. That performance inspired belief in me. Max had never been chinned. He's been fighting since like 18, and he's fucking 35 now, and gets chinned for the first time by Ilia. Obviously knocked out Volk. That's a different one, but half of Ilia's wins are via knockout. 6 submission wins to boot, only 2 decision wins. First fight at lightweight, and obviously has never lost in his career. El Matador, El Spaniard. I do respect how he's from Spain, and George, I love Spain. Charles Oliveira, covered in the UFC 309 video. So he actually fought one pay-per-view after Ilia. He got a decision win over Michael Chandler. Impressive win, even though your lasting image of that fight might be Michael Chandler slamming Oliveira onto the canvas, not campus. I'm lost without Shaman. Majority of Charles' wins have come via submission. It's crazy. He has like 20-something submission wins. Mixes in knockouts and decisions as well. Last 2 fights have gone the distance. When he's lost, it's been mostly early. This one gives me pause because for the last 2 weeks, I've been seeing what's that sound on TikTok? Oh, it's crazy aura for Charles. I've been seeing so many Do Bronx edits. People don't like Ilia. I think Ilia could be the next McGregor, to be honest. If he even sticks around, he's rich. Like somehow him and Armin are just like rich and just fighting for fun, which I don't get. But I've been seeing a lot of aura. I'm sorry. I've been seeing a lot of TikToks for Charles. Everyone's rooting for Charles, and we know what happens when that happens. Ilia's going to win this fight. Now, minus 500, minus 440. We don't put that in the parlay. Honestly, at the time of this fight, I'm probably going to be close to blackout drunk. I'm just keeping it real. This is a tough one because I like Charles. I do like Charles, and I like Ilia. One of the only Joe Rogan podcasts I've listened to, Ilia Topuria. It was beautiful. He probably rehearsed that whole thing, but it was a wonderful experience. Man, if this was Islam versus Ilia International Fight Week, like Charles just lost to fucking Armin. I know Armin's an idiot and like broke his back flexing for Nina Drama. Oh, he could have had it. But I think Ilia wins this fight. I'm taking Ilia via knockout, minus 175. He's the Reaper at the door meme. He did it to Volk. He did it to Max, next is Charles. Fan favorites, like, they're cooked, guys. I'm sorry. Ilia's coming for their head. And every time I go on one of these long rampages praising a champion, they lose. I did it with Leon and I did it with Pereira. But nothing in my body tells me Charles Oliveira can pull this off. Like, maybe there's an off chance he pulls a submission. I don't see it, though. So I think Ilia's going to win this via knockout. Under 2.5 rounds is minus 180. I'd probably throw that into a parlay as well. Yeah, I think it's going to be a sad day. But the bright side is there's so many fights, so many fun fights for Ilia at lightweight. The lightweight division stacked. Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett. There's a lot of bad blood there. And I'm you know what? I'm not even going to annoy Ilia the champion. He's got to beat Charles Oliveira on Saturday night. If he loses his first fight to Charles and Charles is champ and he did it for his son, that's a good story too, man. Like, I'm rooting for both sides in this fight. I'm rooting for just a cinema war in this fight. I'm rooting for fight of the night, Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. Like, holy fuck. Like, the only two fights that made me feel that way this year were Umar and Merab and JDM and Bilal. Like, and Umar and Merab wasn't even like to end the night, but when we ended that night on JDM versus Bilal, I was like, holy fuck, like, the UFC's back. All I want is just for something like that to happen. Like, I need a competitive fight, back and forth, whatever happens. Let's extend this to the third or fourth round. Let's have a brawl, gentlemen. There's been a lot of lead up to this fight. I'm excited. International Fight Week should be a decent card. So that's where we wrap up this fight card. Before we wrap up, of course, I have to give you my official picks. UFC 317. We got $5. I don't know what the $5 was. 5 picks, as always, because I always make things in fives on this channel, mostly sports bets. Starting it off, we have a nice little prelim parlay for you. By the way, changed up the odds on this whole podcast. Forgot to mention it. It's all through DraftKings. ESPN and the UFC website are not accurate. When I go to make my bets, some of these bets are different than I see, so I've just done off DraftKings as of Wednesday, 7:30 p.m., June 25th. UFC 317 bets. First, prelim parlay. We got Jhonata Diniz money line, Terrance McKinney money line, Tracy Cortez money line. Plus 190 total on that. If you're looking for a suspect leg, it's Terrance McKinney. I love you, but I don't know. I'd put maybe next to that one when I was writing it down. We need a prelim parlay to keep the energy surging. If it loses, we're still on later on. What I've been doing lately, and I recommend this to a lot of people for UFC, is to do your bets within brackets. Like, you shouldn't be betting on Jhonata Diniz money line and then taking freaking like Ilia money line. You need to keep hope alive for the end of the card. Gambler's advice right there. Moving on, distance parlay. We got Diniz, Hines under 2.5, Araujo, Cortez to go the distance, and Hermansson, Rodrigues over rounds, over 2.5, I believe, or just to go the distance. Either way, plus 203 on that one. We're giving out plus signs, big plus signs. Next, we got our two underdogs of the card. Amil moneyline plus 135, Hermansson moneyline plus 165. And to end it all off, we have a main card parlay. Y'all can round robin this. Y'all can make some variations on it. I'm going to make a couple of variations on it. It's the main card. People who we like. Lima, Royval, Moicano, Pantoja. All mostly favorites. Well, actually, Royval's an underdog and Moicano is like only a slight favorite. That gives you plus 718. Like, what the print money, guys. And if you take one of them off, you're still probably at like plus 400. I'm going to be printing money because I know at least 3 of these 4 guys are winning. I know it in my soul. And we're also making a lot of spite bets on this one. So, it's none of this is gambling. None of this is professional gambling advice. You know the drill. But I will say I'm going spite bet against Kai Kara France because he brutally knocked out one of my favorite fighters, Steve Ercheg. Money Moicano literally can't afford to lose. The Royval pick's like an actual pick. And then the Lima pick's a spite pick against Payton Talbott. So literally all like 3 or 4 of those are just spite picks. But that's how we win in the UFC sometimes. So that's a fucking UFC podcast, guys. It's been a blast. It's been a while since I've done one alone. UFC 312, I believe, was the last one. So kind of drove myself a little crazy here, but we got it done. So UFC 317 taking place Las Vegas, Nevada. Tell me your guys' picks below. Where did I go wrong? Where did I go right? Am I misguided? Am I a casual? 17th fucking UFC podcast in the books. Crazy work. So I'll leave y'all at that. And as always, be easy, y'all.